久しぶりだな、麦わら。
Hey guys, so we're here today taking Perona to our second locals, facing off against the black-yellow Luffy. We won the dice roll and we're able to take second away from them. They open up with a Garp, which is going to find them the 5-cost Sabo, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, the baby Sabo. Then we go into our 2-Don play. We're going to open up with our Otama. Look at top 5. We make a mistake here and initially grab Otama, but then we catch ourselves and realize that Otama cannot grab Otama, so we grab the Momo, and then we use our second Don to play out Momo for the next turn. Then our opponent here is going to swing 6 at us. We are not going to give him a 2k counter at this point. We're going to take the life. Then he's going to play out his search event, grab the 5-cost Sabo, and play a second search event. I do not admittedly remember what he grabs off this one, but we'll see. I think it may be the Egghead Luffy. No, he grabs the Rush Ace. And I take that back again. He does grab the Egghead Luffy. So now we're here moving into our 4-Don turn. I think we're going to first, yes, rest Garp, swing into Garp, not give him any resources. Search with Momo, just looking for cards here. And we grab the Ryuma. That's ultimately going to come in helpful for our late game because you can see we have multiple Ice Ages in hand. So we should be able to clear really any of Luffy's bodies that he plays outside of a Sabo turn. So our opponent here swings into the Momo so we don't get any more free searches, plays the Sabo just to filter hand, and then is going to pass it back to us. So on our 6-Don here, he has the Sabo protected by the Sabo effect, so I imagine we just want to get the Borsalino down. And in doing so, that would leave us with 2-Don up, so we would have the opportunity to be able to use You Can Be My Samurai here, resting the Borsalino and Otama to draw 2 more cards. But I'm not sure that that's necessarily the best option at this point because we really want to save the Borsalino until we really need it. So here, moving into our opponent's 7-Don turn, he quickly swings 7 at life, which we're going to go down to 2 life, knowing that he's going to use his 5-Don to play a 5-cost body, which is the life Luffy. So technically here, I think this was a misplay. He took the life to hand. It should have been trashed and he should have drawn a card, but didn't catch that at the time, and that's fine. Technically, the number of cards in hand is correct at this point, and the card added off of the Luffy was a random card. So I'm not going to get too worked up about that. Moving here into our 8-Don turn, we have a number of 8-cost bodies in hand that we would like to establish, but that wouldn't allow us to remove this Luffy here. So what we end up doing is playing the Belmere, resting it to -1 cost to Luffy. We didn't actually declare the +1 on the Perona at this point, so we are swinging 8 into 8. And I do want to iterate that this was a misplay here. We should have declared the +1 and attached 2-Don to Perona just to get a card out of his hand, because he doesn't want to let it go that easily. That would have allowed us to have the 1-Don open for You Can Be My Samurai to be able to rest the Otama and the Hiyori, and then use the Hiyori effect to replace itself. So on our opponent's 9-Don turn here, we are fully expecting them being at 3 life, wanting to take life here at this point. So we're expecting either a Flampe to draw a card and then play a Rush Ace or Egghead Luffy to deal with the Ryuma, or play a Hiyori to stack either of those 2 cards as well and play the baby, or even Makino just to take the life and then hard play the Rush Ace. So we first here see Luffy swinging at Belmere just because Belmere's card text says give my Sabo -1 and let me rest it and go for game. in the late game. So we're not going to waste time defending the Belmere. We kind of already know what we want to do on our 10 Don turn once he passes over, as long as he doesn't play a Sabo on this turn to protect his board. So we're going to see what he pulls out. So he's playing the baby ace. That's good news for us. We will expect him to swing into life here, and we will block that with Borsellino because we're not really looking to go down to 1 life, and we don't have a ton of counter in hand, as you can see. But now that he's played the ace, our 10 Don turn comes a lot easier at this point because we're going to want to use Ice Age on either the Sabo or the ace. Then we will be able to play the 8-cost Sabo to KO both of the 5 drops on his board, as well as then use leader ability to rest Hiyori, swing into Hiyori with Perona. And then lastly, yeah, you can see it here, that you can be my samurai to rest both the Ryuma and the Otama just to draw 2 cards. And we do that first just so that we can see if there's any better options as far as what we want to pitch off of our 8-cost Sabo here. And so now we've effectively fully cleared his board while establishing our own 9k swinger along with our rested Ryuma and leader heading into his 10 Don turn, where he's still at 2 life, so playing Moria here doesn't really help him all that much. And you can see that his hand size is really starting to dwindle. He's at now, after playing the Ice Age, 5 cards in hand, and then playing the Rocket Luffy, that'll keep him even at 5 cards in hand. However, because you have to trash the Rocket Luffy to be able to draw and KO, he's not really developing a board this turn that we're scared of. And you see we have the 2 8-drop geckos in hand, so our next 2 turns will be pretty good because we have the board established, or sorry, the trash established rather, to be able to make our geckos effective, especially since it doesn't look like he's really going to have a board going into our gecko turn, so we're going to be able to just very easily clear the Garp. So yeah, we're not going to spend 2 cards to protect the Ryuma here. So we're going to clear the Garp, play our gecko, most likely playing an active Borsellino, and then whatever green 1-drop we have in the trash. I'm not sure if we have Otama or if it's just, yeah, it doesn't look like we have Otama, just the Momo. So we'll play the Momo rested, the Borsa active, and then most likely use one of our remaining 2 Don to be able to play the You Can Be My Samurai, resting the Otama and the Gecko to be able to draw 2 more cards, keeping our resources plentiful while our opponent's dwindling at this point, and we are developing our board. And so resting the Gecko and the Otama here makes the most sense because Gecko he's not really going to be able to swing into, and we want to keep Borsellino active. Now, this is a play that I don't know that I necessarily agreed with in hindsight. I think I would have rather kept Momo in hand. I don't think we need a second one on board. Counter probably would have been more preferable at this point. But here again, moving him to his 10 Don turn, he's at the same spot he was at last time, having 6 cards in hand and 2 life, making his Gecko not really all that viable at this point. So he plays the Life Luffy to go down to 1, which leaves him with 5 Don remaining. I imagine he'll use his 2k counter, either Flampe or Makino, to be able to take this last life, giving him 4 Don remaining. So we would expect him to be able to go up and be a 7k leader this turn because he's going to have 2 to put on leader for leader effect and 2 to play a baby. And so with 6 cards in hand currently, we can see that he's going to replace whatever 2k he plays down, taking the life to hand most likely, keeping him at 6 cards in hand. But then to be able to activate the leader effect, he's going to have to pitch a card going to 5, and then playing a baby going to 4. So he will have 4 cards in hand and be a 7k leader with 1 life going into our turn, where we're more than likely going to want to establish the second Gecko. So we can see here he put the ace on top, so that's telling us he's got the baby in hand to be able to play the ace and swing 7 at us, which we're hoping he does. He's going to be able to swing 7-9, and with him swinging 7-9, we're more than likely going to counter out of the 7 and take the 9 just so that we can keep the Borsellino on board. And now once again, our 10 Don turn is pretty self-explanatory here, us having the Ice Age and Moria in hand and him having the rested ace. So we're going to counter out of this 7, take the 9, and then heading into our 10 Don turn, We're going to want to play the Ice Age to minus the Luffy, use leader ability to rest the Luffy. We're going to swing into the ace with the Moria because him having 4 cards in hand, he's not really going to want to spend 2 cards to defend it, going down to 2 cards in hand. So that's a pretty free board removal at that point because we will establish our second Moria along with the Ryuma and then maybe even an Otama if we play over it to be able to search. But knowing that our play only requires 9 Don and Ice Age and Moria, we are tapping the 1 for the Momo search, so we pick up an extra 2k counter. So here, yeah, we are swinging the 9 into the 7. Our opponent is debating on whether he wants to spend the 2 cards to defend it, but he ultimately does not, and that's in line with what we would expect. So now we're going to spend the 1 for the Ice Age, resting the Luffy, and then establish our second Moria here, playing over, I imagine, the Otama. And now that we have the Ryuma in hand, we're able to play the Hiyori off of the Gecko just to be able to draw another card to replace the Ryuma in hand with potentially more counter. But first, we're going to activate the Otama, and we're going to draw into the You Can Be My Samurai just in case we need more cards the following turn. And then we're playing out the Ryuma to KO the Luffy just to draw another card. And now we're sitting here with basically a full board with 2 6k bodies in Ryuma and Borsellino and 2 9k bodies with a life and I think 7 or 8 cards in hand. While our Luffy is still dwindling, having I think 3 or 4 cards in hand at this point. So it's looking pretty favorable. He does end up able to play the Gecko now that he's started his life cycle, so he'll be able to play the Sabo to protect the Gecko and the Makino, but whatever he plays out, yeah, so this ace potentially, if we need to clear it, it will not be protected by the Sabo effect. But I think realistically, having the 2 Geckos on board and his hand size, we're most likely just going to be able to go for game the following turn. So he's deciding what to pitch here off of the Sabo effect. I'm imagining he's wanting to keep as much counter in hand at this point because he knows that the board we have presents some pretty heavy swings, even if he is a 9k leader with a blocker and a life. So he swings 7 here, we counter out. And then we block the 11k swing from the Luffy. So we now realistically have 4 potential swings. He has 1 blocker and 1 life, so we only really need 3 to hit. He has 3 cards in hand at this point, so we should really just swing 9 here, poke a card out of his hand. And so knowing he cycled with Sabo last turn, I'm expecting the last 2 cards to be counter, so I think realistically we don't have mathematical lethal at this point, so it may make more sense just to play the 3rd Moria that we have in hand, or to play the You Can Be My Samurai just to draw cards, but I think that we should swing the Moria into ace here just to make sure that we get the clear. Let's see if that's what we do first. Okay, so we're debating if we have the math here just to go for game, but I think we do not actually have it because he's a 9k leader here. I think we should go for board, see if we can clear that. So yeah, we're going 9 into 7. He's not going to be able to defend that unless he goes to no cards in hand. And now we still have all 10 Don to use now that he's let that go. I think the first thing we do here, because he's a 9k leader, is ultimately just clear the Makino because we're never going to swing into him with a lead to be able to Don up for. I think currently we're planning on doing the Gecko play, but we're going to see what we can draw into with the You Can Be My Samurai first. And now we have 9 Don remaining and drew into a perfect 4 Don for Borsellino and 5 Don for Sabo just to be able to make sure that we have the board protected and then we can't die from his swings at life. And we'll also be able to use the Sabo to be able to cycle into potentially more counter, which we draw into a 2k and we're able to pitch the dead Zoro and one of our other 3 dead cards in hand. But ultimately where this leaves us at, as you can see in our hand, we have 6k counter in hand, 1 life, along with 2 blockers that have protected our board. Our opponent here is at, I think, 2 or 3 cards in hand after the draw. Maybe 3 cards in hand after the draw. He only realistically has potentially 4, maybe 5 swings. He would need at least 4 to connect with our 2 blockers, our life, and then 1 for lethal. I think having 6k counter in hand, I don't think that that's very realistic. So we're going to see what we has in hand here, and we're going to respond accordingly. But I think our goal here is just to make sure that we don't die this turn, because our geckos are going to be able to take care of business. One other thing worth pointing out is that we would like to hold on to the Suru in hand in case we need it to rest Sabo to go for game on the crack pack. And so it looks like our opponent's grabbing 2 Don here, swinging 8 into life. I think we're not scared necessarily of taking this. I'm not sure if it's worth giving him 2 2Ks, but it is a perfect number. So we may do that and go down to 3 cards in hand with 2 blockers. But no, we do decide to take this. And it is another 2K, giving us a total of 8k counter in hand. But really, I would just say it's 4 cards with counter, because he's most likely going to be swinging 7s. So this is, I think, a 7. Because he has 6 Dons, so yeah, that's 2 on Sabo, 2 on leader. So yeah, 7 at life. I think we're probably going to just counter out of this with the 2 2Ks, force him to have the rush in hand. Then I imagine he's swinging 9 with Gecko, which we will block. Oh, he's swinging 10, even better. So yeah, we just blocked that with Borsellino. He's playing the rush ace for 5 and swinging a 7, and yeah, we just block with Sabo, give him a 2K. He passes turn, he has 2 cards in hand, 1 life, and he's a 5k leader, so it's really just 2 9s, and it's over. Hope y'all enjoyed the match, and like, comment, and subscribe.